All three of them had stage 4 cancer. All three of them don't have cancer right now at all.
Good evening, folks, and it looks like those conspiracy nutballs were right again. How many times are they going to be right? Today, Mel Gibson drops 2 medical bombshells on the Joe Rogan podcast. Legendary Mel Gibson shared 2 shocking medical experiences that defy mainstream knowledge. It all started the moment Anthony Fauci's name leapt out of Gibson's mouth.
Drove up to San Francisco, and I listened to it, and I had road rage.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, whoa, how is he still there?
First of all, people that don't believe it, how come RFK Jr. didn't get sued?
Yeah.
How come there's no lawsuits?
Mm-hmm.
If there was lies, there would be lawsuits.
No, but that's right.
He'd be publicly humiliated. Instead, they kept that book off bestseller lists. That book sold millions of copies.
I know.
They hid it. That's when you find out that bestseller lists are actually curated. It's not really bestseller.
Yeah. It's censored. It's all censored.
Yeah.
Everything's censored. You know.
But that book is an accurate depiction of what Anthony Fauci did during the AIDS crisis, which probably was an AZT crisis.
Yeah, and
now
now
it was an AIDS crisis.
I mean, it's fairly incontrovertible now that he was fooling with gain of function.
100%.
And you know, it's why is he still around?
Right.
Or at least free.
Right. And no repercussions.
Yeah, whatever happened to that story where, you know, the wombat and the weasel got together and they were horsing around and a bat pissed on him with a golden shower, you know, and all of a sudden it was in a wet market, very wet market, you got, you know.
Complete total horseshit. And
totally.
The scientists that we're supposed to trust were pitching that horseshit.
It was like the AIDS thing. Some green monkey bit a Qantas steward on the ass. Then he went around the world and got everybody sick. And it was like, you know, ridiculous.
If you want to go through the AIDS rabbit hole, look up a guy named Peter Duesberg.
Oh, yes, I know.
Yeah.
I read that book.
Yeah, that is crazy. If he's telling the truth, this is the COVID crisis times 1,000.
First bombshell dropped when Gibson shared that he couldn't walk for 3 months after taking Fauci's pet drug for COVID.
I got COVID from my gardener, and he had it first, and then I got it. And I was like, did I grab the hose or what? You know, what was, I don't know. But it was, I knew the guy for 20 years, and we both went to the same hospital, and he died and I didn't.
Jesus.
I think we both got remdesivir, which is not good.
Not good.
Not good.
Causes kidney failure.
I know. I couldn't walk for 3 months after I had that stuff.
Really?
Because it kills you. I found out afterwards it kills you, and that's why I wonder about Fauci, you know.
Oh, you should wonder about that guy. When meanwhile, they were trying to stop people from getting monoclonal antibodies. Yeah. Well, they've restricted monoclonal antibodies, which is fucking insane because they wanted to promote that vaccine because they wanted to profit off of it, which brings us back again to evil. Evil's real. It's real. Putting money over human lives is evil.
I agree.
It's a real thing, and there's a temptation to do it too, which is even more crazy.
The most jaw-dropping moment happened when Gibson made a statement that could threaten the entire cancer industry. Gibson revealed that he has 3 friends who had stage 4 cancer, and now all 3 of them don't have cancer right now at all.
I'll tell you a good story.
Okay.
I have 3 friends. All 3 of them had stage 4 cancer. All 3 of them don't have cancer right now at all. And they had some serious stuff going on.
And what did they take?
Jesus. They took some, what you've heard they've taken.
Ivermectin.
Fenbendazole.
Fenbendazole. Yeah. I'm hearing that a lot.
They drank hydrochloride something or other.
There's studies on that now where people have proven that they've
drinking methylene blue and stuff like that.
Yeah, methylene blue, which was a fabric dye.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a textile dye. And now they find it has profound effects on your mitochondria.
Yep.
Yeah.
This stuff works, man.
There's a lot of stuff that does work, which is very strange because, again, it's profit. When you hear about things that are demonized and that turn out to be effective, you always wonder, well, what is going on here? How is our medical institutions, how have they failed us so that things that do cure you are not promoted because they're not profitable? That they can't control it. They don't have a patent on it, whether it's vitamin D, K2, and magnesium, you know.
Well, yeah, I'm doing
zinc
all
and
that- I do all
quercetin.
that stuff.
I do all that stuff.
Being familiar with alternative cancer therapies, Rogan concluded Gibson was talking about antiparasitic drugs Ivermectin and Fenbendazole, which Gibson confirmed with a nod. Corroborating what Gibson reported to Rogan, cancer surgeon Dr. Kathleen Ruddy revealed to the Epoch Times last year that she has seen several late-stage cancer patients make dramatic recoveries after taking ivermectin. One patient had a grim future, and then something remarkable happened.
A second patient crossed my path. A guy in his 70s who had been losing weight for a year and a half, 40 pounds, not vaccinated, 40-pound weight loss, smoker, drinker, all he does is fish. And he could no longer swallow, and he could hardly talk. And so I got on the phone with him, and I said, Eddie, you know, tell me a little bit about your history and so forth. He knew someone with prostate cancer who had taken ivermectin, had cured himself from prostate cancer with that. So Eddie began taking ivermectin. I have no idea what the dosing was. He was just taking it. And I gave him some advice about diet and, you know, try and get the weight back on and so on and so forth. Within a couple of weeks, he sounded stronger. Sounded stronger. He could swallow. He had gained 6 pounds. His voice was better. Followed him for the next couple of weeks, maybe another month or so, and I said, Eddie, we need to get a scan. He doesn't have insurance, he doesn't like doctors, whatever. He had been diagnosed in that interval with 2 esophageal tumors, unresectable. Surgeons wouldn't go near it. The doctor said, well, we'll give you chemo and radiation, and Eddie said, no, you're not. So he takes his ivermectin, and maybe about 6 weeks later, I said, Eddie, you need to get a scan. Had to argue with Eddie to get a scan. We got the scan. No tumors. Gone. Gone. The problem was that he had sold his fishing boat. That was the biggest problem. He was getting better. His tumor was gone. Now he needed to go out and buy another fishing boat.
Adding to the growing evidence in support of fenbendazole's use case against cancer, an Oklahoma man credited his miraculous cancer recovery to the pet med after overcoming terminal small cell lung cancer, defying a less than 1% survival rate and leaving doctors baffled.
When you tell someone that a medicine for dogs cured your cancer, you better be ready for some skeptics. But Joe Tippin says it did save his life and others. And now even cancer researchers are open to the possibility it might be true.
My neck, my liver, my pancreas, my bladder, in my bones, it was everywhere.
2 years ago, Joe Tippin says he was told to go home, call hospice, and say his goodbyes. The doctors were unanimous. He was going to die of small cell lung cancer.
Once that kind of cancer goes that far afield, the odds of survival are less than 1%, and the median life expectancy is 3 months.
Tippin says he went from 220 pounds to 110, but that was January of 2017. Today, Tippins is very much alive, and what he credits for his survival has doctors scratching their heads and the rest of us raising eyebrows.
About half the people think I'm just crazy, and half the people want to know more and dig deeper.
Tippin says he got a tip, not from a pharmacist, but a veterinarian. And in his desperation, he turned from people medicine to dog medicine, specifically fenbendazole, or what you give a dog when it has worms.
Truth is stranger than fiction, you know?
Just 3 months later, Tippin says his cancer was gone.
I'm usually skeptical, and I was, and maybe still am, about this one. But there's an interesting background to this.
Cancer researchers like Stephen Prescott are skeptical, but they also are not dismissing this anti-parasitic's potential. He says Tippins is not the first person to potentially benefit, and maybe not the last.
Scientists at many credible places have done work on this for years.
But was it the dog dewormer, or was it something else? Tippins took the dog medicine with daily vitamin E supplements and CBD oil. He was also taking an experimental cancer-fighting drug. But Tippin says out of the 1,100 patients on that clinical trial, he was the only one cleared of cancer. Tippin says he was saved by the dog dewormer, and he plans to take it for the rest of his life.
Well, my insurance company spent $1.2 million on me with traditional means, before I switched to a $5 a week medicine that actually saved me.
Prescott says he's now working with Tippins to organize a case study.
We're going to do it and see if we can confirm that in a very rigorous sort of clinical study sort of way that these patients had that kind of response.
As for Tippins,
I've got now over 40 success stories other than me.
he's sharing his story on an online blog that has already been read more than 100,000 times. Most of the feedback, positive or curious. Some, though, accuse Tippins of giving cancer patients false hope.
How do I answer that? I mean, if I've saved one other person other than me, it's worth it to me.
All we know for sure is that Joe Tippins is alive. In time, perhaps we'll also know if this medicine made for man's best friend might also be man's newest cancer cure.
Fascinating. You know, when you're in the fight for your life, you don't care what it is. If it works for you, it works.
Yeah, absolutely. And he says, listen, I'm not a doctor. I'm not an expert. I cannot tell people to take this. I can't. He said, but it worked for me. And if somebody else wants to do the same thing, then they can do it too. Interesting thing, though, is that, you know, he mentioned $5 for that. He says it's actually doubled in price because when you type in Fenbendazole in Google, one of the first or second things that pops up is cancer cure.
Wow.
So the talk is out there.
More and more people are catching on, but just incredible story. Evan, thank you.
And that's the news no one wants you to know. Subscribe for more interesting videos like this one right here. Good night, folks.